Hey, it's Marley. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving book recommendations for my younger self. So yeah, I just thought I would talk about a few books that I really enjoyed as an adult, and I wish that my younger self could have enjoyed them. Books that I think would be perfect for any young adults or teens in your life now if you want to give book recommendations to. But specifically for me, these are just books that I really wish I could have enjoyed when I was younger. I know I would have really enjoyed them and got a lot from them. So yeah, let's get into it. We have a whole mix of contemporary, I think some thriller, some fantasy, a pretty wide variety here. So starting out, this is the book that really inspired me to make this video, inspired this whole concept, and that was I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. This is a young adult contemporary novel. It's about this girl, Angel, who is a really big fan of this boy band called The Ark. They're like a pop rock boy band. She is just a huge fangirl, really into fandom, and she's going to be meeting up with one of her online friends to go to their concert together. We're also seeing the point of view of one of the members of the boy band named Jimmy. So we have the fangirl perspective, and then we also have the idol's perspective, the boy band's perspective. I really would recommend this for my younger self because I was such a fangirl, and reading this book was really interesting for me, really reflective. I feel like if you grew up in fandom, you would really get a lot from this book, or if you are currently involved in it, I would recommend it for any teen currently going through this. But it was really interesting to give the perspective of, you know, such a relatable character like Angel, then also seeing the point of view of Jimmy and the harder part of fame, what a lot of famous people have to deal with these crazy fans that go against their privacy and stuff like that. So I think when I was younger, I would have really felt seen reading this, even though I was always more into like actors and TV shows more than musicians. I still was there for One Direction. I still was into some bands. So I just thought this was a really good book. Kind of sad, kind of serious in tone, but Alice Oseman is just really great at writing these teen stories. Next up is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is another young adult like murder mystery series. So this is the first book in the series. It's about our main character Stevie, and she wants to be a detective. She really loves solving crime, and she ends up going to this school that is for gifted children. Every child has like a special talent, and hers is like solving mysteries. But it just so happens that at this school, Ellington Academy, they are known for these crimes that happened years ago. It might have been like 100 years ago, something like that. In the past, there were these crimes done by someone who called themselves Truly Devious that were never really solved. So Stevie wants to try to solve this age-old mystery on her own while she's at the school. So it's really, really fun. I totally wish I would have read this when I was younger because I didn't read that many young adult like mystery thrillers. I feel like maybe they just weren't as popular when I was younger, but I think this is like the perfect introduction to murder mysteries and thrillers for younger people. It is a series, so there's a lot more going on than just the mystery. There still is all those other things you want to see in young adult books, young adult coming of age books. Stevie deals with mental health issues like anxiety. We also get to see her and her friend group and also her romantic relationship. So this is just such a well-rounded series that I really wish I could have read when I was younger, but any teens now definitely should check it out. All right, now we have a fantasy book that I wish I read when I was younger, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Now technically this is an adult book, but I think if you are on the older end of the teen years, you could still enjoy this and it wouldn't be too crazy for you to pick it up. This of course is a fantasy series where we have a main character, Violet, who is forced to go to this like dragon training school and do all these trials to become a dragon rider. It's very similar to series like Divergent or even ACOTAR. I always pull some connections between this book and so many other series. A lot of those series I was enjoying as a teenager, such as Divergent. I was really into all of those tropes, all of those kind of fantasy and dystopian tropes, the romances, stuff like that. So I think this would have just fit in really perfectly during that time when I I was reading all of those books, but it would have been like maybe a little bit more elevated as we're getting more into adult books, because technically this is for adults. There is smut scenes in it, but it still is super accessible and easy to read, and as I said, has all of those familiar tropes that we were seeing in YA at that time. So I just think this could have been really good for me to read back in the day as I was transitioning into adulthood or into being a new adult. So this is one I would recommend, again, for those people who are wanting to get out of reading so much YA and move into the adult space. I think this would be a good transition novel. And for anyone new to reading and who hasn't seen all of these tropes before, I think it'd be really fun, a fun place to start. And actually, shout out, my sister just recently read this and now she like wants to read all these fantasy romance books. So I think it could be really good to get people into reading. All right, changing the vibe here, but I'm gonna say The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. She's a young adult author. I believe this might have been her first or second horror book. So yeah, technically this is a young adult horror and it is a retelling of Carrie. So of course, if you know Carrie, it is about a girl who is an outcast, and in this particular edition of the story, you know, her father is very toxic. He wants her to hide her true identity as she is mixed race, so half black, half white, but she is white passing. But then one day her hair ends up curling up at school due to getting wet, and then it is revealed that she is half black, and so that just makes her even more of an outcast. And we're seeing her journey as she figures out these powers. She finally gets some power back for herself, just the, you know, the typical kind of Carrie story. But when I read Carrie a few years ago, I didn't really like it, so I did overall enjoy this book more, and I think this would have been great to read as a teen, again, as kind of an introductory into reading horror or thriller or like darker books, or these classic like retellings. Like obviously a teen might not be interested in reading Carrie by Stephen King, but they might be interested in reading this. It basically says everything that Carrie says with an added layer of the racism element. So yeah, just a book I would highly recommend, along with any of Tiffany D. Jackson's books. Honestly, they're all really good, but I think this would have been really neat for me to read when I was younger. Okay, maybe I should have just put all of Alice Oseman's books on here, but I'm gonna say Radio Silence, again by Alice, another young adult contemporary book about a main character, Frances. She's very studious, but she also is, again, kind of an outcast at school, but she's obsessed with listening to this one like radio show or podcast, you could say now. And then she ends up befriending this guy, Alid, who also really loves the podcast, and it's just this really beautiful story about their friendship and identity as these two outcasts in high school. I found it very relatable. I think if I would have read it as a teen, again, it would have just been very relatable and helped me feel seen. So I definitely would recommend this to any teens who are really going through it, who maybe don't fit in with their peers, maybe they're more creative than their peers or something like that. But I think it was really nice to read a book that was ultimately about friendship more than it was about romance as well, because I feel like a lot of books can be focused more on the romance of it all. This is a book I talk about a lot because it just was so good. Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. It is about Yadriel, and he is a trans teen in this community of Brujas and Brujos. His family just can't accept that he is a Brujo due to like his gender transition. So he's trying to prove himself. He does this ceremony to try to, I think, like resurrect or call a ghost, but then it ends up calling a different spirit, a boy named Julian. And so we're trying to figure out like, why is Julian dead? Because he was one of Yadriel's classmates. There's also some other missing boys, I believe, as well. So it's this really fun story of like a romance between the two boys, and then also kind of like this mystery and this fantasy. I think it would have been really great to read as a teen. Aidan Thomas is one of my favorite young adult authors. I just find his books are so funny. He's also very in touch with like teens. He must be pretty young himself, because I feel like he just really writes very accurately, but also very fun and entertaining. And the romance is really, really cute. And I feel like this could have opened me up to reading about a different culture at a younger age, reading about the Latinx community, and also having some queer characters as well. I definitely was not reading about transgender characters when I was younger, so I feel like this book can introduce teens to a lot of different things that they might not be normally exposed to, but in such a fun way. So gotta mention this one. Another fantasy I really wish I read when I was younger younger is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This might be more similar to what I was saying about Fourth Wing, where it is a fantasy book that has a lot of similarities to other books I was reading when I was younger in the fantasy genre that I just think I really would have gotten into back when I was a teen. We have our main character Jude, who is a human girl, but when she was young she got brought to the fairy world, and so she's grown up there and just really had to fight for herself and her sisters because they are humans living in this fairy world that can be very dangerous. She ends up getting involved in like the fairy politics there. Her father's really trained her to fight well. She's a very tough character, and also she has the ability to lie, which fairies don't. So she's pretty valuable in the fairy politics world. And we also have a romantic subplot as well with the prince Cardin. Very much a hate to love romance. It's a slow burn throughout the whole series. So I just really loved it, and I think this would be great for any teens. A great introduction to the fairy world. I've read a lot of other fairy books when I was younger and really enjoyed them, and so I think this would be great for other teens to get introduced to fairy mythology, fairy lore, and the political elements are very interesting. And this is one that people in my real life, real friends have read, and it's really helped them get into reading. So I think this is a really great jumping off point as well. But yeah, I know I would have loved even more if I read it as a teen. I already loved it, but I feel like I would have loved them even more when I was younger. Another great young adult series is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. This is a 3-book series and it has to do with superheroes. So our main character is Nick Bell. He is just a human boy, but he loves the superheroes in his town. What are their names? We have Shadowstar, who is the biggest hero, and he's just obsessed with this hero. He writes fan fiction about it. He wants to be a superhero to like be with Shadowstar. Anyways, he is on this journey to like try to become a superhero. I've described it as kind of like an inverse of superhero stories where we're not following the superhero, we're following the love interest of the superhero. And obviously it deals with queer characters, which is really great. Have a bunch of other coming of age stuff going on with Nick, his friend groups, his dad, his mom's passed away, his dad's a cop. There's a lot of like social commentary, while it's also like so fun and so funny. TJ Klune is a really funny guy. His books are really great. So I think this would have been so fun to read as a teen, even as an adult. When I read it, just so great. 5 stars. Next up is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. As you can see from the cover, it has many awards. So definitely an amazing book. This is actually written in verse. The author is a poet, so a lot of her books, or maybe all of them, are written in verse. Unfortunately, this is the only one I've read so far, but I really want to read the rest of her books. This is about Xiomara and just her whole coming of age story, her experience with her parents and religion just being kind of forced on her, I believe, growing into more of a mature body and what that entails as a young woman, just figuring herself out, and then getting into poetry as a way to express herself. A really quick read, a really relatable read. Again, this could expose teens to some different topics that they might not know about or that they might be experiencing themselves, and could help them really feel seen. So definitely have to recommend this book, and I gotta get reading her other books soon. All right, a book I really love and I've talked about on my channel a lot, but maybe not super recently, is Legendborn by Tracey Deonn. So this has to deal with Arthurian legends. So I really would have recommended this for my younger self because I was really obsessed with the show Merlin, which has to deal with obviously Merlin the magician and Arthurian legends, Arthur before he became king. So I definitely would have been interested in reading this when I was younger. It is a young adult fantasy series about our main character named Bree, who goes to this school and then gets wrapped up in this mysterious, I almost want to call it a cult, but no, this group of people who are descended from Arthur and the Round Table of Knights, and they basically fight monsters and protect the world from these monsters and darkness. It's giving very much City of Bones as well, which I loved as a teen. So seeing those tropes again were really fun. We have some chosen one energy, we have a love triangle, but we also have more of an updated, diverse group of characters. So I think this would be so great for any teens to read. Even though there's a lot of info dumping, some of it's hard to wrap your head around all of the stuff going on in this world, I still think it's worth it to push through because I love these characters and this story. Just so excited to keep reading the series. All right, then actually a non-fiction pick, we have Shy, How Being Quiet Can Lead to Success by Annie Ridout. This is just what the title says, it's talking about people who are shy or introverted. Well, it kind of discusses the difference between being shy and introverted, but how even though you have these qualities that can oftentimes be looked down upon in society, that being quiet is not good and you can't be as successful with being quiet. It kind of talks about how you can and the good qualities that can come with being shy or quiet in the workplace or in a leadership role. I gave this 5 stars. I felt so connected with it as a shy person. It can be very like motivating and uplifting and kind of teach you some skills or some things that you can do to improve upon your shyness as well, improve your confidence a bit more. But I think this would have been really good for me to read when I was young and even more shy and even more quiet. This could have been like a good little hopeful book to read of like, you can do it, you know? So this is a book I would definitely recommend for any other shy people, or if you are an adult in the life of a shy kid, this could also be interesting to read. And those are going to be all of my book recommendations for my younger self or for any younger readers out there, any teen readers. I think I would have loved any of these books back then. I would have learned a lot from them. So I hope you guys got some recommendations from this video as well. These are some of my favorite books, so I really hope you guys will enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment below. What's a book you read as an adult that you wish you read as a teen and you know you would have loved? But yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Please subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you soon in a new video. Bye.